2, 3, 4.
I thought what I want to do is to relive something in the past which relates to Devon. I was really sort of reliving my past and especially the past I'd had with my two children growing up as we sort of walked around the countryside.
I'm working on the project now which is based on Change in My Time, which is based on 4 periods of my life, all of which seem to have been revolving around water, ranging from Little Conyers Creek to the mighty River Thames and the River Stour and Faversham Creek.
Quite early on I was interested for this project in the idea of the present being built on the past. Through one's life you are to some extent the sum of all your prior experience. So the idea of a good age being the piece at the top, the big piece, relying on the sort of husks and skins and shells and no longer useful elements beneath it interested me.
A good age gave me the opportunity to perhaps start, looking at a new set of inspirations or influences, I think, more than inspirations. I had a whole lot of family photographs which I decided to go through, and I've always been very influenced by the fact that my father was a prisoner of war. I think that triggered my interest in wanting to say something with the material.
And I think I've been watching TV representing all the refugees. A refugee is a very static person through circumstance. They've nowhere to go, they've no way of developing themselves because they're restricted. I thought, how do I represent that? Make an austere figure, also because they have their arms down by their sides, they're passive.
Having 18 weeks is a luxury. Quite often in projects like this you'll have a sort of 5 or 6 weeks and you've got to introduce people to the idea, help them think things through and create an end product. So to have 18 weeks is really fantastic, and that meant that we could go on a little bit of a journey exploring the art form and at the same time having conversations about what the project theme meant, changes in our time. And what I'm interested in is encouraging people to use photography in a sort of different way, in a more creative way, in a more communicative way, trying to create a narrative with pictures.
I inherited a lot of my father-in-law's woodworking tools, planes, irons, chisels, all this kind of thing, which I have photographed because I'm only about halfway through.
I looked at all the hairstyles that I had back in the 50s and then the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, so I thought I'll just do perhaps something like Andy Warhol, because I was at art school at that time and he had the panel of Marilyn with all the different effects and colours.
When you start taking photographs again, you notice much more detail in things. And when you go out, you're very much aware of that. You just pick your eye up all the time.
Well, actually, what I do every time I mind the grandchildren, I take photos during the day of what we've done, and then in the evening I send it to the parents so they can see. Like I do a documentary.
Despite making something quite simple, life experience and that determination is quite apparent with this particular group of people. You know, they've kept at it quite well, and it's not easy. You know, physically quite hard on the hands. You are dealing with thick bits of stick which you've got to physically bend. You know, there's also, I noticed with my ladies here that agriculturally they're connected to where they are. They know about bees and birds and plants and trees and landscape, and they talk about, you know, what they've seen this week or first primrose, you know, those sorts of things. There's a definite connection to landscape that I get from the people that I've worked with.
And I like this because it's very free form, so you don't have to be exact. My art teacher ripped my pictures up and told me I was a heathen. So, yeah. Actually, I can do this, and he was wrong.
So this is wonderful. As soon as I heard of this course, I was really so interested because I long to make baskets or know how to do things. So it's been a real bonus.
In our society generally, in all age groups really, but especially for older people, is isolation. I think, you know, there's such an epidemic of isolation, and it's a very sad state really, where often people maybe don't see anybody else all week. Maybe they need to see people when they go shopping. It's just an opportunity to come together with people who are all going through similar things like we do. You know, our life ingredients are usually same on all sorts of levels really. So yeah, it was just a really nice time to come together and just share a bit of creativity and have a chat and a cup of tea. You know, something really quite basic really, but actually, you know, it's yeah, there's nothing quite like creating something together, you know, making things together. It's lovely.
See that one at the front? You've got the British Isles, you've got Africa, yes, you've got the circle of life, and you've got all the tall buildings, modern things, and you've got all the trees, and the Africans make these funny little wire bikes, and they're very artistic people.
Well, I've not used the cottons before, not for printing, so we will see whether it works or not.
Craftsman in World War II, so I'm getting on a bit, and got a birthday this month. 94. Yeah, so still standing up, so that's the main thing. But when I came to sewing, I thought, that's hard. So by going a continuous line, it makes sewing a lot easier.
I've been really touched by how open people have been about their sort of backstories to their work. I'm amazed at what people have made. The ideas, creativity, the skill, for people that have never used clay, what they've been able to make is really, really astounded.
Well, we've learned how to make a big pot, haven't we?
Yeah. The art of pottery.
Yes, no,
it's been really good.
Well, it's connected to past and present, whereas we used to do a lot of gardening, grow vegetables, and also we used to keep bees. But unfortunately, as the years passed, you can't do it all. So now we're more into pots and flowers. Everything that's easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
As the theme is change in our lifetime, I dug out our old wartime ration books and my mother's wartime cookery book, because I remember this obviously from my childhood. And I'm going to make a facsimile of one of the ration books, reduced in size to fit, and then pop it inside the box.
Loved my grandmother very much, had quite a disjointed childhood, and my grandmother was amazing. She was a vicar's wife, and she was always cooking cakes, and I just remember her bowl and the recipes that I used to help her with, and I'm going to transfer some of the recipes all around the bowl, so it'll be something very special.
I introduced different techniques, but we also had quite long
philosophical chats at the start of every session to sort of delve into the subject and find out where their interests might lie, 'cause it's a really broad topic. I think they felt comfortable very quickly and felt listened to, I think, yeah, because everyone was very respectful of each other's ideas, and we sort of, we'd kind of have a little bit of thinking time and then feedback to the group and then have a wider kind of discussion.
But I just thought of hands in my time, from being a baby to being older, they just have changed shape and structure. What we used to do with our hands, we now have machines for.
I decided to sort of represent time through the fable of the hare and the tortoise. When the hare's finished, I'm going to make a tortoise shell to sit on his back, and inside the shell I'm hoping to make things in the Fab Lab to extend the concept of time, because it's actually quite a complex concept when you start thinking about it.
So I wanted to show the journey of my life, and it really started with my mother sending me to typewriting school, so the typewriter was the beginning of my work with technology.
Barbara Hepworth says, "All my memories are of form and shapes and texture." She continues, "Perhaps what one wants to say is formed in childhood, and the rest of one's life is spent trying to say it."
In fact, the first time I started doing some of this was in 1940s, sat next to my father, who was, who made them. And in fact, I'd sit next to him, when the siren had gone, because the Germans were busy trying to totally destroy Coventry at the time, which was only 35 miles away.
I always was drawing from early on in my childhood. I remember it vividly. There was no paper in the house, so I would ask for a pencil and a piece of paper, and it sounds a bit violins time, and my mother would take a sheet of grease-proof baking paper and I'd be drawing on that. But I know that my first main interest and awareness was with the Festival of Britain in 1951. One lady and a gentleman, Mr. and Mrs. Batchelor, did go, and they brought me back a fountain pen. After that, I just was always drawing.
Since the age of, if not the age of 12, then certainly from the age of, when I was first an art student at 17 or whatever it was, until now, I've invested a huge amount of time, energy, effort, imagination into it. Aaron Copland said it's essentially seeking to answer the question, who am I? And since everything you do is only a partial answer to that question, that drives you on to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. But I think you also get to a kind of age where you feel you've achieved a few things, however modest. And also you get a sense of time running out as well, which drives you on. So it's a kind of high wire act, but it's engaging and exciting at the same time.
When I first became conscious of being creative was probably when I was very small. I don't remember making a decision. It was just my life. So even though I grew up in the country and I didn't know any other artists, I was always making stuff and drawing.
I moved to Dorset from London, where I was working as an actor, and I had to earn a living, and there's not much acting work in Dorset. So refurbished their house and brought up as a single parent, 7 children. I had to find a job that I could work and pick our kids up from school and feed them and do normal. When I was in my sort of 20s, brought them all up, they're all grown up.
As I got older, I think the only thing that's happened in relation to my work is that I'm not distracted by quite so many other things. And I have a much more regular way of working. I tend to work for a couple of hours in the mornings, and then sometimes we go up for a walk down to the Tate Gallery, which takes about an hour's walk. So I'm much more contented and much more working on a regular basis.
I can still pull that press, and I can still, luckily the eyes are okay, which is what happens to a lot of people once they get to a certain age. And I think my fellow printmakers and other people I know that do art professionally, if you call it professional, they never question that there's any reason not to do it. It's just something you've got to do, and you want to do, and you enjoy, and that's where you get your biggest feedback.
One aspect, perhaps an inevitable aspect of being in my 70s, is that I have a huge backlog of unrealised ideas and ambitions. So an opportunity like this, at the very least, gives me a chance to try out a few of those things that perhaps I've put off or had no excuse to do or had no prompting to do earlier. What are the things that have stopped you achieving as you might have done? Number one, me, myself. Number two, other people. Number three, money. G.K. Chesterton said, money is the sixth sense for the artist.
I mean, I've got to put bread on the table, and that's the way I've earned my living for 50 years, 60 years. As you get older, you're less capable or less caring if you're not careful. You can help people. That sounds trite, but if you can affect others positively, it's worthwhile. But the ethos of my life is, what's left of it, is to continue doing what I've done for I'm on this planet.
I don't have the strength that I had. I spent a lot of my life wheeling things in and out of large kilns and lifting bags of clay and so on, which I can't do now. But you kind of adapt, and perhaps things get slightly more delicate. I don't know. I mean, it's irritating, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think you adapt to what you're doing, and it influences things. But I think there's the influences of childhood keep repeating themselves. The sort of language.
But I seriously think the best is at hand and yet to come.
It is as much the art and the craft is important, but it's also the socialisation and the interaction, because there are people I know in this group that now meet by themselves, 4 or 5 of them, and they have taken on this photography group independently. And there are a couple of people in the Exeter group who have used the facilities and the groups at the library in Exeter outside of the group. So I think it is that it's about the creative side, but it's also about the socialisation and feeling like you've got something to look forward to.
I've loved it, actually. It's been an absolutely brilliant experience coming here, because I've not really worked with clay before. It's really therapeutic just putting your hands in this moist clay and losing yourself in the creation process.
It's been nice meeting people, and it's a very nice venue.
Thank you, sir.
So it has been a good experience.
The idea that I could have some of my work in the guild, is just fantastic. So I wanted to make something that would look good in that context.
And to do it with people you know and get to know. So that's why I started doing it.
There's a definite
something different, isn't it?
For me, the process is what's important, and just hearing about other people's projects and seeing their journeys, I think, is very interesting.
I've never done sewing before, and it was great fun.
I think when you've always worked hard all your life and you've had to do things, you forget how to be yourself. And this is what the biggest thing is what it's taught me, is being newly retired, is how to wind down, how to be me, and now it's coming out. And yeah, I've gone on and done other things. Yeah, brilliant, love it. Go for it.